Hey guys, so this month I'm going to analyze a song from a really awesome band called Chon. There's so much stuff of theirs that I think is worth analyzing, and I think I'll do plenty of videos on their stuff. But for this month, I'm going to be analyzing chords of theirs from the beginning of their song called Sleepy Tea off their new album, Homie. So let's hear what that sounds like. Okay, so here are the chords, and what I'm going to do here is I'm going to explain first sort of how I see things fitting together in terms of music theory, and then I'm just going to point out at the end something that I like about Chon's voicings here on the E dominant chords. So this is going to draw from a little bit of jazz theory, so I'm assuming a slight amount of background here, but not way too much. In particular, so what we're seeing here is the way I hear it in my head is that this first part of the song is all in A major, A Ionian that is, and we start on the 4 chord. I kind of have these two parts here. There's rehearsal letter, sort of section A, which makes up most of the song. Most of this section. We loop this a few times. And then B, which is just the turnaround at the end, which I think sort of functions a little bit differently. For the A section, like I was saying, there's really nothing that crazy going on. We start on the 4 chord, and then we start what's called a 6-2-5-1 cadence, which is a very common thing in jazz. Essentially, what this is based on is movement around the circle of fifths. If I want to end up at the 1 chord, it turns out the best way for me to get there, the best place I can get there from, is the 5 chord, because there's this certain consonance to going from the 5 to the 1. And what we do in jazz, and then by extension, largely in modern music, is that then we say, if I'm going to go to the 5 then maybe the best chord before that is a 5th from the 5. And diatonically, that's the 2 chord. And similarly, the relationship between the 6 minor chord and the 2 minor chord is a 5th. All right, now that we know what's going on, let's hear that same section, except slowed down a little bit, and I'll show you the chords as they're being played. One interesting thing that is going on here is that starting with the F sharp, we get through 6, 2, and then 5, but then the loop goes back to the 4 chord. It doesn't resolve right away. It would want to go to a 1 from this 5 chord, but it doesn't. In fact, we delay that resolution until the very, very end here. So now I'll talk about this B section, in which we do in fact land on the A major 7. Although you might say that if you want to describe it from a modal interchange perspective, we would say that by the time we hit A major, since it's an A major 7 sharp 11, that this resolves to a Lydian. There's a little bit of modal interchange here. In order to get to that A major, we do something that's really common in modern music, which is going from the flat 6 to the flat 7 to the 1. So we see that in the roots here, from going from F to G to A. The particular chord choices here, though, aren't quite diatonic. F major 7, sharp 11 can be thought of as a borrow chord from A minor, from A Aeolian. It would be the flat 6 chord from that. And this G minor 7 is particularly interesting because it wouldn't even quite fit into A minor, actually. So usually when you're doing flat 6, flat 7, 1 cadence, this G here would be a G dominant because diatonically a G dominant would fit into A minor. And it just happens here that instead of resolving to A minor, like what would happen diatonically, we actually resolve to A major, in particular A major 7 sharp 11. But interestingly, instead of choosing a G dominant for this G, for this flat 7 chord, they choose to make it minor. And to my ear, all this is essentially choosing a voicing for the G chord that has more tension in it. The G minor 7 builds more tension that can be released into the A major 7. Okay, and the other thing that I wanted to point out is the voicing that Chon uses for the dominant chords in this, because often when I'm writing music that's intended for a rock context, I usually only reach for major and minor chords, and it's hard to incorporate dominant chords because if you voice them incorrectly, they can sound a little old-timey, a little barbershop-y. It doesn't seem to fit generally. But these guys choose voicings that make a lot of sense. Namely, so the first time, so with this, the interesting thing is that they don't play the 7 in the chord. And the tritone between the major 3rd and the 7, this is a really key thing to that sort of classic dominant sound. So if you take that out, it doesn't sound quite as dominant, and it just sounds more like an alt chord, which kind of contributes to it not sounding quite so hokey. So when they hit it at the end there, one thing that's going on is, so this has 3 and 7, and then 13 right next to the 7. There's this half step dissonance, which is kind of nice. This does have the 3 and the 7 in it, and it does sound quite dominant. But to me anyway, the voice leading of the melody makes it make a lot of sense and not sound as out of place, if that makes sense. There's some other things that you can reach for. So often what I'll do when I'm trying to put a dominant chord into something is I'll use a suspended voicing of some sort. So if this is my 2-5, instead of going, so for this dominant, I could instead use something that's more like an E sus. So I go, yeah, you can kind of do that. Or in fact, I've lately really liked reaching for this D over E type of voicing. So you have your D triad, and then you put an E underneath it. It's this nice sort of extended suspended voicing. And I'll probably end up doing a video about where I use that in a song of my own. So anyway, those are some ways to get around the kind of old-timiness of a vanilla dominant chord. And there's some of the stuff going on in the very first section of Sleepy Tea by Chon. Let me know in the comments section if you think that something else is going on, or if you have other ideas for songs that you'd like to have analyzed. Subscribe if you're into this type of stuff. Let me know what you guys think, and I'll see you next month. Later.